All right, today we are going deep, deep into the microscopic world of our own gut. We're going to unmask a tiny little resident called Endolimax nana. Now, for the longest time, science just thought of it as this quiet, harmless passenger. But as we're about to find out, this little microbe might just be hiding a pretty big secret. And that really gets us to the heart of this fascinating medical mystery. I mean, what if an organism that we've just, written off as harmless for decades suddenly starts popping up, linked to some really persistent health problems? That's the puzzle we're going to try and solve today. Okay, so first up, the harmless hitchhiker theory. Let's dig into the history. Because for most of modern medicine, Endolimax nana had a reputation that was, well, frankly, pretty boring. Yeah, for decades, the official word was that Endolimax nana is what we call a commensal organism. That's just a fancy way of saying it's a harmless hitchhiker. You know, like a roommate that pays no rent, eats none of your food, and you barely even know they're there. It just hangs out in our large intestine, supposedly minding its own business. So what is this thing exactly? Well, Endolimax nana is a protozoan. That means it's a single-celled organism, but it's a complex one, a eukaryote, not a simple little bacterium. And that puts it in a whole different league from, say, the multicellular parasites like worms that you might have heard about. This is a whole different kind of creature. And if we look at its, let's call it its family tree, this is where it gets interesting. Its official address puts it in the phylum Amoebozoa. This makes it a distant cousin to some of the more, let's say, notorious amoebas out there. And knowing its family ties is absolutely crucial for figuring out how it operates inside our bodies. So how does it get around? Honestly, its life cycle is super simple. It starts when someone accidentally ingests its tough, dormant form, the cyst, usually from contaminated food or water. Think of it like a tiny seed in an armored shell. This little package travels down to the large intestine, hatches into its active form, and sets up shop. It's a classic fecal-oral route, which really just boils down to one thing: sanitation is everything. And because of that simple life cycle, for a long, long time, its only real job in medicine was to be a bioindicator. Basically, finding Endolimax nana was like finding a footprint at a crime scene. It wasn't the culprit itself, but it was a dead giveaway that the person had been exposed to fecal contamination. So for doctors, it was a signal to start looking for the really bad guys that might have come along for the ride. But what happens when that quiet guest starts causing trouble? That's when the whole harmless bioindicator story really started to unravel, as doctors kept finding it in patients with some very real and very confusing symptoms. And this right here, this is the turning point. The evidence started piling up from all over the world, questioning that harmless label. As this one paper puts it, reports started coming in that begun to challenge the strictly non-pathogenic label. You know, doctors on the front lines were seeing things they just couldn't ignore anymore. And the symptoms they were seeing were all over the map. I mean, it wasn't just the stuff you'd expect, like chronic diarrhea, bloating, and abdominal pain. People were reporting serious fatigue, nausea, major weight loss. And then, get this, things like chronic hives and even joint pain. And the craziest part? The only common thread, the only thing they could find in all these patients was a heavy infection of Endolimax nana. Okay, and here it is. This is the smoking gun. These bizarre, persistent symptoms that wouldn't go away, they would suddenly just vanish. But only after doctors decided to go ahead and treat the Endolimax nana infection with antiparasitic meds. When you see that, it's pretty hard not to suspect a direct link, right? So this creates a massive new problem. If this thing can actually cause disease, well, how on earth do you even find it? It turns out spotting this little guy is a huge, huge challenge for modern labs. First off, just look at the size. We are talking 5 to 10 micrometers. To put that in perspective, that's about 1/10 the width of a single human hair. It's so incredibly tiny that it's just ridiculously easy for a lab tech to miss it under a microscope, especially if there aren't many of them in the sample. So what are our options for finding it? Well, the old school method is microscopy. It's the gold standard, but you need a seriously skilled eye, and even then, it's easy to miss. So you think, okay, what about modern DNA testing, right? PCR? And yeah, it's way more sensitive, but here's the catch. Endolimax nana has this one weirdly long gene that a lot of standard PCR tests just can't handle. It's like it has a built-in cloaking device, creating this massive diagnostic blind spot. And it gets worse. This whole diagnostic problem is made even bigger by a kind of institutional bias. Because of that old harmless reputation, many advanced lab systems, like some of the ones used in the Netherlands, for example, are literally programmed to just ignore it. Even if the machine detects its DNA, it won't report it because the system assumes it just doesn't matter. So, all of this leads to a huge debate to treat or not to treat. Imagine you're a doctor. You actually managed to find it. What do you do next? Well, the crazy thing is, the answer totally depends on where you are in the world. And this slide just lays out the conflict perfectly. On one hand, you've got official guidelines, like in the Netherlands, that state in no uncertain terms, do not treat. The official advice is just to manage the symptoms and send the patient home. But then, on the other hand, you have this mountain of case reports from all over the globe, from doctors who are saying, hey, wait a minute, when we do treat it, our patients get better.
So where does that leave us? How do we fix this debate? Well, this is where modern science is stepping in, and it's starting to give us a much clearer, more nuanced picture.
And the new consensus is this. We should probably think of Endolimax nana as a conditional pathogen. That means it's not always bad, and it's not always good. It's all about context. In a healthy person, it might just chill out and do nothing. But if your immune system is down, or if the infection gets really heavy, it can flip a switch and start causing real problems. And the current research is just fascinating. For one thing, genetic work is showing that Endolimax nana might not even be a single species. It could be a whole family of them, with some cousins being way more aggressive than others. Researchers are also on the hunt for the actual mechanisms, the molecular tools it might be using to cause trouble. Plus, they're finally developing smarter, better diagnostic tests so we can actually find the darn thing reliably. Which leaves us with the big question, right? Is Endolimax nana a harmless friend, a foe that's just waiting for the right conditions, or is it something else entirely? Our understanding is changing, literally as we speak. And it's just such a perfect reminder that in the world of medicine, things are almost never as simple as good or bad. It's usually the start of a much, much deeper story. So that's our deep dive. This whole explainer was put together using a Gemini deep search. If you really want to get into the nitty-gritty of the science, we've linked a Notebook LM document with all the sources down in the description. And hey, if you enjoyed this journey into the gut, do us a favor, hit that subscribe button, and please leave your thoughts and questions in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you.